Ever wonder why some people make it through a crisis while everyone around them is struggling? It is not luck. And it is not about having more food. It is about having the right food. The foods your body actually needs to survive. Today we are talking about 12 foods you only need to survive and how to store them so they actually save you when needed. They are not just food for emergencies. They are survival foods for you and your family. Let's dive in. Number 1. Rolled oats. Most people do not understand that a crisis does not just take food, it takes routine. And when routine disappears, especially for children and older adults, stability and clear thinking go with it. A warm bowl of oats in the morning is not just breakfast. In a prolonged blackout or disruption, it is a signal to the brain that life still has structure. Oats also require almost no fuel to prepare. In an emergency where cooking fuel is limited, every minute of heat is a resource being consumed, and oats need only a few minutes of boiling water. When everything else feels uncertain, that small daily ritual of a hot breakfast can be the difference between calm and panic spreading through the household. It sounds simple, but in a crisis, simple is exactly what keeps people together. Oats are also one of the most versatile foods on this list, working as porridge, flatbread, a thickener for soups, or even an energy-dense snack eaten dry when no cooking is possible. Whatever ingredients you have left, oats will find a way to work with them. Rolled oats stored in the original bag last 1 to 2 years. Transfer them into mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and that extends to 10 years or more. Whole oat groats stored correctly can last 20 to 30 years. If you have not transferred yours into sealed long-term storage yet, that is the single most important step you can take for this one today. Number 2. Dry beans. Oats keep the morning standing, but a single meal is not a survival plan, and carbohydrates alone will not keep the body functional through weeks of physical stress. The body needs protein, and without a reliable source of it, the decline begins quietly and builds faster than most people expect. Your body can burn carbohydrates, it can burn fat, but when it starts consuming its own muscle tissue, that is when real physical decline begins. An adult needs a minimum of about half a gram of protein per pound of body weight each day. For people over 50, that number is even higher because the body loses muscle mass faster under stress and reduced nutrition. You will not see protein deficiency in the mirror immediately. You will just feel a little more tired every week, a little weaker every morning, until one day you realize something has been quietly slipping away. That kind of slow deterioration is far more dangerous than sudden hunger because it happens before anyone realizes it is happening, and by the time it becomes obvious, reversing it without proper food resources becomes incredibly difficult. Dry beans solve this problem without refrigeration, without a cold chain, and without any dependence on the power grid. 1 cup of cooked beans provides 12 to 15 grams of protein, plus fiber that stabilizes blood sugar and supports digestion. Combined with rice, the two complement each other to form a near-complete protein structure that has sustained billions of people across Asia, Latin America, and Africa for centuries. Stored dry, sealed, and protected from moisture, beans can last 20 to 30 years. A 5-gallon food-grade bucket with a tight lid is all it takes to turn a cheap bag of beans into a decade-long protein reserve. That is an investment that costs less than a single restaurant meal and returns more than almost anything else you could put in your pantry. Number 3. Rice. Beans cover protein, but protein without a caloric base to support it is like building walls without a floor. Every other food in this list works better, stretches further, and delivers more when rice is underneath it. A 25-kilogram sack of rice contains approximately 80 to 90,000 calories. At a normal daily intake, that is more than 40 days of energy for one adult. No refrigeration required, no additives, no cold chain. White rice, stored dry, sealed, and with low oxygen, can last 25 to 30 years. The milling process removes the outer bran layer and its natural oils, leaving almost no environment for bacteria or mold to grow. And unlike most other staple foods, rice combines with almost everything else on this list, stretching whatever you have further than any single ingredient can on its own. That is not a coincidence. That is why civilizations built themselves around it for thousands of years. But here is what most people get wrong. They buy rice and throw it in a cupboard in the original bag. That bag is not airtight. Moisture gets in, bugs get in. Strong-smelling spices nearby get absorbed. Rice only needs one thing to last for decades: a dry, sealed, airtight container, kept away from strong odors and heat. Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers inside food-grade buckets is the long-term approach serious preppers use. Done correctly, rice bought today can outlast the person who stored it. The difference between rice that saves your family and rice that fails you is not the rice itself. It is how you chose to store it. Number 4. Whole wheat berries. Rice handles the calories, but after days of the same meals built around the same base, something else starts to wear down that has nothing to do with nutrition. The mind needs variety, and the family needs something that feels like a real meal. That is the job of whole wheat berries. There is a reason that throughout history, when food became scarce, bread was always the first thing people fought over. Not because it is the most nutritious food, because it represents something deeper than nutrition. Bread on the table signals that life still has structure, that meals still exist, that things have not completely fallen apart. Research and historical record consistently show that when grain prices spike sharply, social instability follows. Not because people are starving, but because the absence of bread triggers something psychological that no other food can replace. When your family can still sit down to something that resembles a normal meal, the mind stays calmer and decisions stay clearer. Whole wheat berries solve a problem that flour cannot. All-purpose flour has a real shelf life of 6 to 12 months before the natural oils inside oxidize and the flavor goes off. Whole wheat berries, stored dry and sealed with low oxygen in food-grade buckets, hold their quality for 25 to 30 years. A hand-cranked grain mill costs around $60, requires no electricity, and lets you grind fresh flour exactly when you need it. Wheat berries also go well beyond flour. Cook them whole like a heartier version of rice, or sprout them over 3 to 4 days for fresh green shoots rich in vitamins when no fresh produce is available. When everything else is being fought over in stores, wheat berries sit untouched because most people have never been told to look for them. Number 5. Peanut butter. You now have your carbohydrates covered, your protein covered, and your morale food covered. But there is still a gap that will quietly bring your body down if you ignore it. And most people do ignore it entirely. Fat. Your body needs dietary fat to produce sustained energy in the cold. It needs fat to absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K. It needs fat to maintain stable hormones and protect the nervous system. Most foods at the center of a standard emergency pantry have almost none of it. White rice has basically zero. Dried beans barely any. History recorded a phenomenon called rabbit starvation, where hunters survived for weeks on lean meat, eating enough yet still collapsing from fat deficiency. That is the real danger of ignoring fat. Eating enough and still deteriorating is more frightening than hunger because you do not see it coming until the damage is already done. A stockpile without fat is not a complete stockpile, no matter how many bags of rice and beans are stacked inside it. Peanut butter solves this problem in the most practical way possible. 1 tablespoon contains approximately 200 calories of fat, protein, and lasting satisfaction. A 16-ounce jar holds nearly 3,000 calories, requires no cooking, no electricity, and no fuel. Choose simple ingredients, peanuts, and salt, and rotate your jars regularly so your supply stays fresh. In a situation where barter becomes relevant, peanut butter will hold extraordinary value because it is compact, universally loved, and provides the kind of dense comfort that no bag of grain can replicate. It is one of the cheapest ways to close the biggest gap in most people's food reserves. Number 6. Canned meat. Peanut butter covers fat, but fat and carbohydrates alone will not keep a family strong through weeks of physical stress. You need a ready source of animal protein that requires zero preparation. And that is where canned meat becomes irreplaceable. When the refrigerator has no power, when fresh meat becomes a luxury, when every other protein source requires preparation you may not have the fuel or water for, canned meat is the reserve that simply opens and nourishes. The meat is cooked at very high temperatures and sealed in a completely airtight environment with no oxygen present. Bacteria cannot survive the heat processing, and without oxygen, mold and microorganisms have nothing to grow on. The most important thing to understand is that the date printed on the label describes peak quality, not the point at which it becomes unsafe. The danger is not the food inside. The danger is a can that is swollen, deeply rusted, or severely dented, any of which can allow air and bacteria to enter. Check your cans regularly. Rotate the oldest ones to the front and never store canned meat in places with extreme temperature swings. With a can opener and no cooking required, you have a complete source of energy and strength ready in under a minute. Combined with rice or beans, it becomes a full meal. And in the darkest moments of a prolonged disruption, having something that requires zero preparation and delivers immediate nourishment is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. That kind of instant reliability is something no fresh food and no freeze-dried product can match when the situation is at its worst. Number 7. Dry pasta. Canned meat gives you immediate protein with zero effort. But after days of the same combinations, something else starts to erode that no amount of nutrition can fix on its own. Variety. And dry pasta is one of the simplest and most overlooked ways to preserve it. Easy to cook, suitable for all ages, and endlessly versatile across shapes and preparations, pasta turns a depleted pantry into something that still feels like a meal. Dry pasta lasts because the factor that causes almost all food to spoil, moisture, has been almost entirely removed during production. Stored properly, dry pasta does not so much expire as it slowly changes in quality over years, never becoming dangerous the way fresh food does. Transfer pasta into airtight containers or sealed storage bags. Keep it dry and away from humidity, and store it separate from anything with a strong scent. In a time of scarcity, dry pasta transforms based on whatever else you have, and adding beans, canned meat, or even broth elevates it into a real meal without requiring advanced cooking skills or significant fuel. Keeping several different shapes in your reserve adds enough variety to prevent the monotony that quietly wears people down during extended disruptions. Number 8. Iodized salt. Every food on this list feeds the body, but without this next one, the body cannot properly use any of them. Salt is not seasoning. In a crisis, it is a biological requirement that most people dangerously overlook. During heavy labor or extended time in the cold, an adult can lose 500 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium per hour through sweat. When that sodium is not replaced, blood sodium levels drop, and confusion, dizziness, and irregular heartbeat follow. Beyond electrolytes, iodized salt contains iodine, which the thyroid requires to regulate metabolism and body temperature. Salt also plays a preservation role that becomes critical when refrigeration fails. Meat, fish, and vegetables that would otherwise be discarded within 24 to 48 hours of a power loss can be extended significantly through salting, curing, and pickling. In those first chaotic days after a disruption, that extra window of time can mean the difference between calm management and panic. Salt is also one of the most effective barter items in any prolonged crisis. Light, universally needed, easy to divide, and completely independent of electricity or refrigeration. Salt barely expires if kept dry. No mold, no degradation, no expiration. In a world where every other food has a countdown, that kind of permanence carries real weight. Store it sealed, keep it dry, and it will be waiting for you exactly as you left it no matter how long ago you put it away. Number 9. Pure honey. Salt keeps the body balanced, but balance alone is not enough when the body is under real physical stress and medical resources are out of reach. That is where honey steps in, doing something no other food on this list can do. Honey does not spoil because it contains almost no free water. The water present is locked by sugar molecules, preventing bacteria from accessing it to survive. Its low pH creates an environment where molds and microorganisms simply cannot establish themselves. The critical word is pure. Honey diluted with syrup or water can ferment and become unstable over time. A common mistake is assuming that crystallized honey has gone bad. Crystallization is a natural behavior of sugar molecules, and gently warming the jar returns it to liquid form without any loss of quality. Beyond food, honey can disinfect minor wounds, preserve fruits, and provide fast energy for someone who is exhausted or ill, making it one of the few items on this list that pulls double duty as both nutrition and medicine. In a situation where medical access is delayed or unavailable, that second role becomes more valuable than most people ever anticipate. The one thing that genuinely threatens honey is water entering the jar. A tight lid, a cool location, and no water contact is all honey requires to remain stable indefinitely. Stored correctly, it is one of the only foods on Earth with no practical expiration date. Number 10. Powdered milk. Honey covers energy and basic wound care, but there is an entire category of nutrition it cannot touch, and that gap becomes most visible when you look at the people in your household who are most vulnerable. Children, older adults, anyone recovering from illness. That is where powdered milk earns its place. Protein, calcium, fat, vitamins, minerals, nutrients that are especially critical for growing bodies and aging ones, and nutrients that disappear from the diet almost immediately when fresh dairy becomes unavailable. Powdered milk can last for decades, not because it is full of preservatives, but because it has been completely dehydrated. With nearly zero moisture remaining, bacteria cannot survive, and the fats within the milk are stabilized in dry form. What causes powdered milk to fail is not time, but air. Transfer it out of original cardboard packaging immediately and seal it into mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, stretching a 2-year shelf life into 15 to 20 years. A practical approach is to begin blending powdered milk with fresh milk in everyday cooking right now, so that when a disruption arrives and fresh dairy disappears, relying entirely on the powdered supply feels like a natural transition rather than a desperate adjustment. That small habit today could be the difference between your household maintaining proper nutrition and watching it quietly decline over weeks. Number 11. White sugar. Powdered milk covers the nutritional gaps for the most vulnerable in your household, but there is another item that works quietly behind everything else. One that most people walk past every single day without ever considering its role in a long-term food reserve. It does not look like a survival food. It does not feel like one. But, in the right situation, it does the work of several. Pure white sugar traps water tightly within its molecular structure, preventing microorganisms from accessing it at all. Without usable water, bacteria cannot multiply, and mold cannot gain a foothold. This means white sugar requires no refrigeration, no vacuum sealing, and no preservatives. The only thing that alters sugar is moisture. When it absorbs humidity, it clumps into hard blocks. But this is not spoilage. Drying or gently warming the sugar removes the moisture and returns it to normal, fully usable and identical in quality to the day it was stored. A common mistake is storing sugar with oxygen absorbers, which actually trap humidity and accelerate clumping, or storing it near strongly scented spices, since sugar absorbs odors with surprising ease and loses its usefulness in cooking when it does. Keep it sealed, keep it dry, and keep it away from anything with a strong smell, and it will outlast nearly every other item in your pantry. Most people never think about sugar until it is missing, and by then it is already too late to go get it. What sugar needs is dryness, just one condition, consistently met, and it outlasts nearly everything else in the pantry. In a crisis, it can also preserve fruits through jam or syrup, provide fast energy when the body is depleted, and combined with salt, support a basic electrolyte solution when nothing else is available. It is one of those items that earns its place not through one dramatic purpose, but through a dozen quiet ones. A sealed container of white sugar sitting in the back of a cool, dry cabinet costs almost nothing today and can carry more weight than most people ever give it credit for. Number 12. White vinegar, distilled. Every food on this list feeds the body or fuels it. This last one does something different. It protects everything around it, and in a prolonged disruption, that kind of protection becomes just as valuable as the food itself. Most people would never think to put vinegar on a survival list, and that is exactly why it belongs here. White vinegar lasts essentially forever because of its acetic acid content. The low pH prevents bacteria from developing, and acetic acid actively destroys the cellular structure of microorganisms on contact. The important distinction is choosing the right type. Distilled white vinegar with no added sugars, fruit flavorings, or organic compounds is the only version that truly never expires. Mixed or flavored vinegars contain additional ingredients that can break down over time. In times of scarcity, white vinegar is not just for cooking. It can disinfect surfaces, wash fruits and vegetables when water safety is uncertain, support food preservation through pickling, and help neutralize odors and reduce bacteria in the living space. One bottle quietly replaces several other household products that expire, run out, and cannot be replenished when supply chains break. When you think about how much space and money people spend on cleaning products, sanitizers, and preservatives, a few bottles of distilled white vinegar suddenly look like one of the smartest investments in the entire pantry. Store it in a cool place with the lid sealed tight, and it will hold its strength indefinitely, ready to protect your food, your surfaces, and your household long after everything else has run out. These 12 foods are not meant to be bought and forgotten. They are a system, and together they keep a family calm, functional, and standing when everything outside becomes uncertain. If you found this helpful, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss essential information on survival, nutrition, and long-term food storage. Start with one, build from there, and prepare before you need to. Because the one thing a crisis never gives you is warning, and the one thing preparation always gives you is time.